We'll start. Okay, welcome along to this series of webinars we're doing around assistive technology. So myself and my colleague Mary, who's in our Kerry office, I'm Julianne. We're going to be presenting 4 25-minute sessions this week on apps that we tend to use a lot or recommend a lot. We are not being paid for this. We are not promoting these other than the fact that we find them useful and we wanted to share that information with people and hopefully give them an idea of how different apps can be used as in the purpose that they're intended and maybe some extended purposes that we've used them for as well. So just welcome along. This meeting is being recorded and we will have it up on our blog site atandme.com and on our YouTube channel, which is Enable Ireland AT, early next week. So today, as I say, we're presenting around an app called Sounding Board. This is a free to download app. I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a second. But what we're going to do today is give you some information on the app itself, do a bit of a live demonstration on how to set it up and how it can be maybe tweaked to your needs or the person you're working with needs, and ideas for how to use it as well. So today's one, as I said, is Sounding Board. Sounding Board is an AAC app, which means that it's used as a means to communicate, either to fully take over somebody's communication if their speech isn't functional, or it could be used to augment them if they have some functional speech but find it difficult in some areas or some environments or with certain people that they might choose to use an AAC app. So it's designed by AbleNet, which is a company that has a lot of experience in the area of developing products for people with disabilities, and particularly people with communication difficulties and physical disabilities. Unfortunately, it's available for iOS only. There is no Android version of this app, but the nice thing is that it is free. Even if you have an older iPad, you can still download this app. It will ask, do you want to download a compatible version? So it might be a previous version of the app, but it's still functional for the most part. So you can kind of see there on screen what the icon is like. It's a little, sorry, the screen's kind of taken over a tiny bit there. It's an orange icon on screen when you go to search for it in the App Store. A little megaphone with a hand reaching out with a picture of an apple. So that's how you'd recognize that app on the App Store. And just to tell you a little bit more about it, the key features of it. It comes with a selection of pre-stored boards on it. These are a little bit disjointed, I'll be quite honest. I seem to have thrown together a few just to demo the app. You might find them useful though in certain situations, but what I tend to end up doing is making personalised ones for the people that I'm working with. So these can be quickly done, you'll see today, very easily put together, and you can very much personalise them to the individual's requirements. You can also purchase some boards. They're 99 cents, I think that's American cents, rather than euros. But to be quite honest, you'll make your own in the time it takes to dig out your credit card and input it into the system. You can also import and export boards. So for example, if you have created a board for a classroom situation, you might want to share it with more than one person within that classroom. If you have multiple students who are using Sounding Board for communicating, and you've created a board around a certain topic or a certain category, you can share it amongst, you don't have to go to each individual's iPad and then create that board on their one. It's also useful for backing up if you have people who use more than one device or have a tendency to break them. You can actually back up the boards as well by exporting them and saving them somewhere, and then you can re-download them to a new device or a new system as well. It uses recorded speech, so for the demos today I'm using my voice, but take into account who is the person that's going to be using the system and maybe try to find a voice that might match theirs. So for example, I would not use my voice for an 8-year-old boy. I would try and find somebody male at the very least, preferably a male child, but I know sometimes we're restricted in what we can source in the moment. But if you can, it's a good idea to look at that. The symbols that are available to use with this system, they have their own inbuilt library of systems, and to be quite honest, they're not great. This is where the free element kind of you can see it coming into play. However, you can use your camera to take photographs, and you can also use photographs from your library. So that means you can actually download pictures from online, and once they're in your library on your iPad, you can then import them into the app and use them there. You can have up to 20 icons on each screen. So you're actually developing quite complex boards if you're going down this route, in that you can have like 4x5 layouts, and they'll change depending on whether you're in portrait or landscape mode. So whichever way you turn your iPad, the app will try to accommodate that as well. We're going to be using it in English today, but it also does accommodate French, German and Spanish for anybody who wants to create boards in those languages. You can also link boards together, and this is important because it helps may help somebody navigate their own system, that they don't have to go back into the index page to find the next page that they want to use. So for example, the one we're going to be using today is food and drink. So if they're in a restaurant or in the canteen at school or wherever they might be, that they can link between boards. They don't have to go and find somebody to change the boards for them. They can link and go between them. So it helps create a more complex system that somebody can navigate through independently. Access-wise, it's touch screen for the most part. That's your most reliable access method, but it can also use switch scanning, and hopefully I'll get a chance today just to even show you where that is. You can use 1 or 2 switches with it. So one switch would automatically scan each item, and when it gets to the one you want, you would press or select your switch or whatever way you've got it set up. 2 switches means that you control one switch to move the scan along, and when it gets to the one you want, then you press the other switch, so you're in control of the timing for that one. There is also the ability to use auditory scanning. So for somebody whose vision may not be sufficient to be able to see what's on screen, they can have an auditory prompt telling them which one is being scanned at the moment. It's designed for people with low vision, but can actually be quite good for people who have difficulty focusing and attending to a system, because they're getting the auditory to bring them back to the screens. Sometimes I turn on auditory scanning even for people who don't have a visual difficulty. And there is also data logging in this. So it means that you can check and see how much the system is being used, what pages are being used most, what symbols or locations are being chosen most often. So that can help in the longer term, kind of designing your boards, figuring out what the individual person wants to communicate about, and creating a system that's better for them, that the information that they want to communicate is easier to access, and maybe some of the stuff that they're not using that regularly can be deprioritized, I suppose, or moved further down the system, or deleted if appropriate. If, for example, somebody's been using this system in primary school, they may not want to use it in a workplace situation and talk about zoo animals. They may not be appropriate anymore. But I'm a big fan of kind of keeping the information there somewhere for the person, just in case they want to communicate about it again. So just to sum up how we can use this, as I say, it's using recorded speech. So as such, it does not have a keyboard page. So you cannot use it for somebody who's literate, for example. This would not be an appropriate system for somebody who's got literacy skills. It's a really nice one for somebody starting out with communication or has a limited range of things they need to communicate about. You can use it for whole message buttons, so kind of replicating what you might do with a Big Mac or a Little Mac communication devices, those single message devices where you press it and it says something. So we'll talk about that. You can also then use it for starters and completers type layouts as well, where you have maybe sentence starters or utterance starters like I like, I don't like, and then completers with, they can fill in the object that they like or the activity that they like or don't like. It can be a good way of trialing AAC just to see if this is something that is going to work for the person. For example, with some people with autism or some people with profound learning difficulties, we might want to check and see if they're at a point now where they can use something like this without going to a huge amount of expense. So this is quite a nice way to get your evidence to show that yes, this is a system that works for this person. We can continue with this one, or we know to swap over to another system that might be more appropriate. As I say, it's simple. It's got a limited amount of vocabulary that can be inputted, and we also talked about the alternative access. One of the reasons I really like it is because it's so easy to edit. So it could be handed over to whoever's in that person's circle of support, be it an SNA, a PA, family care, teacher, whoever's supporting that person, and they can help support by inputting appropriate vocabulary in a timely manner so that the person can actually use it. So as I say, I'm going to show you a little bit now about Sounding Board, and I'm going to show you how to create a board, how to insert labels, symbols, and record messages. We're also going to talk briefly about linking boards, and I'm going to show you how to set up alternative access as well. So bear with me now, I'm going to try sharing my screen, so this hopefully will go well. So hopefully you can see my iPad screen now. And just to show you, there's the icon at the bottom of the screen, or just under the icon, the picture of Ireland there. You can see it's a little orange square with the hand coming out of the megaphone touching an apple. So when you open up Sounding Board, it's going to look something like this. There's a load of pre-loaded boards there. You can kind of see them already. Ones around clarification, control, emergency help, going down to things like shopping, social, workplace, and even a simple yes-no board. So I'm just going to open up the yes-no board so you can see this one. At the moment, I've got my device in portrait mode. If I turn it into landscape mode, you can see it moves around there. So bearing that in mind when you're setting up your device for your person, particularly if they have any sort of visual issues, that you've always got it in the same orientation, that they're seeing things in the same manner. So that's just one of the pre-made boards. If I click on yes, and it's not speaking to me, it should. You can see there, for example, expressions. You can say, oh, it's not speaking, apologies. Where is my sound control? No, I forgot to share sound, did I? We'll see how we go. Apologies if the sound isn't working. But you can also create your own boards as well. So the way to do this at the moment, you can see on the top right, there's a little icon, a little plus symbol there with the words add boards. So I'm just going up there and I'm clicking on that. It's going to ask you to give a name for this board. So I'm going to start off very simple here. I'm going to start off with the whole message button, replicating what we might do on a Big Mac. We might put in a symbol for more. So I've put in more there as the name of the board, and I can also then go and select an image from the board list. I'm going to come back to images in a minute, but I'm just going to go into my photo library because I know I have a symbol in there for more at the moment. I can also move and scale this. You can kind of see if I wanted to move it left or right, if the picture was bigger than the screen, or zoom in on a certain part of it. This is a whole symbol by itself, so I'm going to use the full thing, and I'm just going to simply click use. I can record in a prompt message. I'm not going to do that here. I will return to that item later. And in the top right, I'm going to simply press the right facing arrow to move on to the next step. So that was us naming the page. Now we have to put the content on the page, and because this is just going to be a simple option, I'm just going to add in the icon here. I'm just going to simply put in more again. So again, picking from my photo library, inserting that. I'm going to give it a message name, and we're going to just call it more. Even if somebody doesn't have literacy skills, I highly recommend you put in a label. It's going to let them see it, and hopefully if they have the ability to learn some literacy, they might get used to and just visually recognize these words. If, for example, it's in a place where a person cannot hear the system, it's too loud, too noisy, they can read the label. So always put in the label, even if the person themselves aren't using it. They might be relying more on the symbol to determine what the message is. I'm simply then going to click on record message here. More. and click stop. So I can listen to that back, play recorded. Is this sending the sound through to you? It's not coming through on my end, it should, but I think it's because I'm sharing the screen that there's an issue. Let's try that again. No, still not working. I've recorded it in there. If I wanted simply this to be a single message, I can just ignore the add image icon there and go to the arrow in the top right and kind of finish my board. So now you can see on my list of boards there, more is the first one. So if I go in here, this is now my communication page that I've created for this person. And simply touching anywhere on the screen, it should say more. Sound is gone on me, I'm really sorry about this, but it simply just says the phrase more. If, for example, I want to move on after a while and make this a choice board, so for example, I might want to say more or I'm finished or stop, I can edit this board. So to edit an existing board, you go to the top left where it says edit boards. There's a little circle with a little minus icon in there. And once I click on this, it will give me a little red dot with the line through it beside all the boards. So I'm going to again just select the more one. It's asking me, do I want to change anything on the page name? I don't. I'm simply going to go back in here. I'm going to add the next item. So we might want to put in a stop or I'm finished icon. So I've chosen this one. I know it's not the exact law of sign, but it's the closest one I could find. I'm going to use this. I'm going to put in the message stop. Save that. I can record in my message stop. And again, I don't add in a third image just yet, so I can simply choose to right arrow to move onwards. So now I have to come out of editing mode by simply pressing in the top left hand corner as well, edit boards, and you can see all the red dots along the left hand side now have disappeared. So I can now go into my more board and I've got a choice, so they can ask for more or they can ask to stop. So it's kind of building. You can kind of build somebody's communication system gradually with this over time, offering them choices. It could be a yes/no board. It could be choosing between two activities. It could be choosing between two people that they want to go to visit. And again, you can add in more as the person becomes more comfortable with the system. You could add in maybe a third option, fourth option, so on and so forth. I'm just going to go back to my boards here again. I created two boards earlier on, one called food and one called drink. I'm just going to show you the food board for a second. So the pictures here are the inbuilt picture library within Sounding Board. The pictures aren't fantastic, unfortunately. I'm just going to edit this board and add in another option for food. So again, editing board, go into food, add an image here, and I'm going to add in an image from the symbols library. You can do this in two ways. There's a little search bar at the top, or you can go into the categories here. So for example, about 2/3 of the way down the page there, you'll see the category for food. You can go in here and scroll to find the one you want. So for example, I'm going to use cookies. And again, pressing save in the top right will then ask me to put in my label, and I can record in my message. Cookies. And that's the only one I want to add in today, coming out of edit mode. And there we now have cookies in there. I also mentioned you can use photographs as well. So I'm just going to go into my drink board. So these were symbols I downloaded off the internet. Basically, I went into Google Images and I found Creative Commons, so free to use images. So you can see the thumbs up and thumbs down there are just pulled from the internet. I just want to point out just a couple of things about the images there. The top image is, top right is a glass of milk. That's quite a nice image. It's very plain to see what it's about. It's very iconic. So glass of milk against a plain background. The same with the 7-Up there. It's a very iconic can. Looks exactly like what it is. However, the picture on the bottom right there is for water. This is not a great image, so if you are choosing images from the internet, make sure that they are clear and it's very easy to know what they're referring to. So for example, the water there, you can see it's coming out of a tap, but it's actually quite out of focus, even though it's in the foreground. You'd more think this is an image around washing up liquid. And for example, the picture of the tea there, yes, it is black tea. I tend not to have my tea that way, so you can easily change the image. So again, going back in, edit the boards, going into drink, finding the icon that you want to change, and I'm just tapped on tea. It will then ask me if I want to edit that picture. So for example, I might want to change the photograph to, oh, thought I had a cup of tea in here. Oh, it's disappeared. No, it's not there. I could change it to a picture of a cup of tea with milk in it. Just to say, the other thing here, if you want to change the order of things, so for example, if you notice after a while that maybe the person has a visual difficulty and isn't looking at things in the bottom right hand corner, but water, or sorry, tea or 7-Up is something that they use often, you can simply press and drag and drop the images around the screen so it's in a much better order for that particular person, whatever their visual ability is, or their access, if they find it easier to access things in a certain place, move them around if it's particularly important for them. So we've looked at setting up a board there. We've also looked at adding content, and we've also looked at how you can edit boards. The other thing you might want to do is link boards. So as I say, this is to help the person navigate their own system. So again, I'm going to add a board here. So this is going to be my top page. If you're used to dynamic display communication devices, they often have a top page where it then links to all the other stuff that the person might want to talk about. So I'm just going to call this talk. It's not really important what this is called because it won't appear to the person. Selecting an image for this, I'm going to my photos library. Sorry, some of the symbols that I'm using here are symbol stick images, so they're more iconic, simple, they're kind of almost cartoonish, so might be appropriate for younger people, might be less appropriate for older people. Allow you to use your own judgment on that one. So I'm going to create a talk board. So what I want to do here is add to my food and drink board so that the person can choose which page they want to go into without going back to that quite busy index page. So I'm going to add image here. I'm going to add in my food. So I'm going to use one from the photo libraries. I think I have a picture here. No, I don't. I'll have to go back and use the symbol library. So I'm going to use this picture that has a selection of different food icons on it. I can record in a message if I want to. I'm going to put in the label anyway. So I'm going to call it my food page. And here at the bottom, link message to another board. So this is what I want to do. I want to link this to my food page. Then food. So then I can add in a link to my drinks page here. So tapping on add image, symbols page, drinks. We have a picture of a selection of drinks. We don't really. I'm just going to go for this one. Drinks page. And again, I can link it to another board. So for example, the drink board there, and I can continue on. If I'm still in edit mode here, so I'm just going to go back. I'm sorry. Going to go forward. Oh, sugar. Have I lost my thing? Sorry, apologies. I'm going to redo this very quickly. Food page. Apologies for this. Drinks page. again link it to my drinks page here. So yeah, continue on. So now I should have my talk, coming out of editing mode. My talk page here now will allow me to go into my food page. So there's brought up my food page for me. I can use the arrow at the top to go back, or I could create another button linking back to this page if somebody finds the little icon in the top of the screen a little bit finicky to get at. So you'll know that these are linked pages because you have the little orange arrow in the top right of the screen. Okay, so very easy to set up, very easy, as I say, use the camera, use downloaded images, the inbuilt symbols aren't fantastic. I do want to just very quickly just go through on the bottom right hand of the screen, there's the settings icon. This is where you would go in and set up your switch scanning. So you can see there it's allowing single and two switch scanning. You can also do your auditory scanning if you're recording the auditory prompts, which I didn't do actually there. The other nice thing here is it does have an edit lock. So what this does is if I turn on edit lock here and go back to my home screen, the icon for editing the boards up in the top left hand of the screen is no longer visible. So if you have somebody who likes to edit their own boards and you'd prefer them not to, that's a really nice one to know about. The user data, this will show you what's been used. You can see there which pages I've gone into, which icons I've used and which symbols I've used. So it's quite a nice way of checking to see if the system's been used, what's important to this person, can we expand on that? What maybe information do we need to move into an easier to access or a less easy to access space. Under the help menu here, you do also have a very simple manual. It's not got a huge amount of information in there, but it is actually enough to get started with the system. Okay, so just going back and just going back to the presentation again. Very briefly there, we've kind of gone through a lot there. So it's ideas for use. As I say, you can use it as a single message communication device. You can use it for choice making. You can also build and start using it as a communication chart and book. So I was using it for very much I want and I like and I don't like today. Take into account that somebody might want more social information in there. I didn't get a chance to put in phrases like hello, how are you? I've got news. What did you get up to at the weekend? You could also use it for social stories if you wanted to have a lot of linking single message page, single button pages linking to each other, but there's easier ways. Mary will be demonstrating one of those later on in the week. You can use it as a talking photograph album. So for example, if you upload your pictures from your holiday, you can put into it messages regarding the pictures. If you hand your phone to somebody, they'll start flicking through the pictures. But they might not comment on them. Whereas if you're showing them the pictures, this was me on my holidays. I ran into my aunt and my cousin when I was down in Cork. We went out for a meal. So it can be used to start conversations as well. And for people who have maybe cognitive degenerative conditions, it could be also used as a memory book type system as well, in that it could help them with reminiscence therapy. Some alternatives then, if sounding board isn't working for your particular person or working for you, there is other iOS apps out there like Simbo Talker, that's available for both iOS and Android. Let Me Talk for iOS. For Android, there's also AAC Talking Tabs and Jab Talk. They're all kind of low cost or no cost type apps as well. So they don't have a great inbuilt library system, but you can download and use your own images. So thank you very much for attending today. I've gone over slightly because we started slightly late, but hopefully that's been of interest and of use. Hopefully you can come up with ideas how you can use it yourself. I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes if anybody has any questions, but I'll stop the recording now if anybody wants to unmute themselves or come on camera. Okay. Thank you very much.